Good day. As you know, I am Kaylin, and today we're going to be starting a two-part video where we're going to be learning how to write basic macros. So first of all, we need to start off with the fundamentals of macro scripting, where we actually learn to understand the language structure and the setup, the outline of a macro and what is needed to actually make that macro run through, and calculate your hours according to what you've written in that script. So we're going to move over to the configuration module, which is where you actually set up the macros. And like I said, today we're going to start the first section where we're going to discuss the fundamentals of macro scripting. But I'm going to use a very basic macro that has been put in here just to use as our guideline and just to explain the different sections there. So if we go to setup in the configuration module, shifts and then macro scripts, you will see then the different scripts that have been set up. Now the one that I want to just show you is the break macro, which is in our other section. I'm going to click on change so we can just see that one. And let's start discussing this then. So the first thing that we need in a script is to tell the system where does it need to run this script. In which part of its calculation. Does it need to do it before it actually runs through the balancing rules, or does it need to run when it's busy with the warnings, checking the warnings there? Where exactly does it need to run? Now the place that you or the statement that you would put in to tell the system where it would run is called an embed point. So this would be then where it would run, and this is the position of it, of the macro script where it's going to run. Now basically what we do then to tell the system where it should run is use the word at. So now you tell the system at this embed point you would run this script through. So in this case we've got at, and we've got the embed point, which is called before saving daily hours. So that is where it would actually run through. Now there is a full-on list of all the embed points. If you had to go to the docs website on TNA Software or then cstime.com, you would then actually find under the macro scripting the embed points. And this would be a full-on list of all the different embed points that are used in the system. If you're not quite sure where exactly to put it, besides now reading this description and finding out what's going on there, first of all you need to decide what is it that you're going to be doing. In this case, if we're doing a break macro, we're altering the hours. So I wanted, before it actually saves the information, if I go and look for something that involves hours and I scan through here, I can see, okay, possibly, let's just see if there's anything, and then eventually you can get to the before saving daily hours, which says here, after each daily hours record is written to the disk, remember the chance of having multiple records is high. Okay, so that's the after one. So you want the before one. Before each, where are we? Sorry. Before daily hours records is saved to the disk, this is a good place to override any daily fields, which is your hours then. So obviously reading this you can just check, but another way to just check, I'm going to go back to my user module. Let's go to the daily hours and let's go and click on that day. If you click on the info button, it'll tell you what the system is doing, how it's calculating the hours. If you click on process, it'll generate this information if it's not already showing, and as soon as there's a script that it's running through, it'll highlight it in blue. So immediately here you can see that it's running through there. But now I want to see where exactly do I need to actually put this in. You'll see there's a tick mark called See Embed Points. If you tick that, you'll see all the different embed points will actually come up. So let's say for argument's sake, I've seen here now, this employee has actually clocked in and it's allocated from 7:30 till 7:45. It's extra. And so forth. It goes on, calculates the normal hours. Okay, so once it's actually calculated all that information, I actually think I would like to take off the lunch break then. So now I see, okay, fine, it's got to obviously be at one of the embed points that's after that. So let's just see, okay, before daily balancing, daily running, and wait, here's something about daily hours. So you can put it in there. Now this is the most common place that you would in any case put in a script, it's usually before it actually writes all that information to the disk, you would quickly make a few changes, whatever that is needed. So that's the most commonly used ones. Depending on whether you're doing warnings, etc., errors or whatever, you would put it according to that embed point then. So we've got our at before saving daily hours embed point. If we go back to the config, then we can just take a further look at this then. So you've got your embed point. We've told the system where it needs to run the script. The next thing that we need to do is tell it when does it need to run this. So we've said where it needs to run, but when should it run the script? And that is where a if statement would come in. So you would then tell the system, if this condition is met, then you would do so and so and so. So we need to first say, in this case it says if daily hours 2 is more than or equal to 5 hours. Now all these variables and things you would find then also on that same Docs website. You can find out all those things. It's always easiest for you to write out the macro in plain words first. So in this case, I want to say if my normal time is more than or equal to 5 hours, and then you can go and convert it to whatever, in the beginning until you actually know the language a little bit better, and you can just immediately put that in there. Basically what this is then is your normal hours. How I know that it is the daily hours 2 is if I go to my setup, shifts, and then shift time categories, I would see that my normal time is code 2. So if there is daily hours in the normal column, which is greater than or equal to 5, then you would run through the script. So then you've put an if statement. You can also use else statements. The other thing that you also need to do is to actually end off that statement. So you've said if that is greater than 5, do this, end of that statement. And then obviously you can put another if statement here and say, okay, fine, if it's less than 1 hours, or less than 4 hours, or greater than 8 hours, then you would take off an extra half an hour, however those rules may be. So this is your conditional construction that you would put in here. What is the condition for it to run this, the script then? The other thing that you can also do is to actually create variables. So let's say, for argument, let's go back. So we've said, okay, fine, if it's bigger than 5 hours, if our normal is more than 5 hours, it needs to make normal time is equal to normal time, or daily hours 2, less our 30 minutes break. So that's what we've told the system to do here. You can also then, like I say, create a variable. So let's say you were going to use this, the half an hour you were going to use in multiple sections in the script. There is various things that you can use. Let me just go back to our website here. We can just go to variables. Let's go and take a look here. Obviously there's a whole lot of variables that you can use then. The one that I'm going to just highlight for now is you'll see that I'm using these variables here. Here is multiple variables and strings and that you can use in order to allocate a specific value to it and use that throughout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say L1, creating this variable, equals 30 minutes. So then, instead of saying daily hours 2 equals daily hours 2 minus 30, I can say it says minus L1. So whatever that may be. I mean, this could be getting your daily hours for, for yesterday, for argument's sake. Depending on how intricate your macro is there, you can create those variables there then. The other thing that you can also do in a macro, which I like to do, it makes it a lot easier to understand what's going on. It's fine if it's a basic macro, but if it starts getting slightly more advanced, you want to put in remarks to tell, even if it's not you that's using, working on the macro again, you want to tell the person what is actually going on in this macro. So there's two different remarks that you can use. You can either use REM, which, and then, is deducting the break time. There you go. And that would, this is purely for the person that's actually looking at the script to see this information. If you now change this to the info, which you're giving a little bit more information then in the processing screen, if we actually save that and we click on OK, let's close this, go back to our user module, and we'll reprocess this then. We'll see that just before it'll say here, this is deducting the break time. So this, when it's an info remark, you will see it in this processing details screen. If it's just if you use REM, that is purely for you to see that is looking at the script there. It will not appear in this. Just to confirm that you guys can see, go back to our script here, click a change, and let's change this to REM. Click on OK, and let's go and process that again, and we will see that that line has disappeared there. Now these values that you see here in this thing is in Clarion time. So this is not, that is essentially 30 minutes, but it needs to be converted in order for you to know what that actually is there. So just that you don't think, oh my word, what's going on here? This is not right. That is the Clarion value there. Okay, so yes, so you can also put in a remark then in your macro script. Just like I say, it makes it a lot easier for you to understand, especially when the script starts getting quite long. You can also, in the same script, you can have multiple embed points. So let's say we've done that story. Now we want to go to another embed point. We can put another one in here. Obviously, try and make it as simple as possible, your macro, in terms of looks, that it doesn't get too confusing. Generally, depending on how long the script is, I like to separate them and then put them all together again, in a main script. So like for this script, for argument's sake, I know is handling the 30-minute break deduction, and that's that. It'll do that. So now I've obviously spoken about being able to create multiple macros and incorporating them together. Now this is done through organizational statements. So what you will do, let's just click on OK. If we go, you'll see our daily macros is what we're going to assign to the shift. Anything that is actually allocated as that will go to your, you'll be able to see then if you go to your options and you select your macro. Yeah. Now what we've got is, let's say we've got this daily macro. We want to include that script of the break, and then let's say we've generated another short time macro, and we've configured then a balancing macro as well. So what you will actually do then in the daily ones, you would then use the include function. Now there's two organizational statements, either a call statement or a include statement. What include will do is it'll include the entire script. So whatever if we say include break, it'll include that whole script and it'll run through that script then. If we use a call function, it'll only include the section which is under the same embed point. So let's say we've got another script, and this script has got a before saving daily hours, and it's got a at warning embed point. And in this one, you say, okay, call, and it's got to call the, let's say it was a balancing macro for argument's sake. Then it'll only look whatever, because you're going to say, okay, fine, let's do it. It's going to be slightly easier. At before saving daily hours, and then you would use the call function. Call, and let's say it was the balancing macro. So now what this script is going to do is, at that embed point, it's going to call the section which is also under that same embed point, and it'll run through that. So in other words, if the other macro, the balancing macro, had an embed point of at before saving daily hours, and then an embed point of warnings at warnings, it'll only run through the before saving daily hours embed point. It will not run through the warnings one. So that's what the difference is of the call function. It does a certain embed point, that section it runs through. Include runs through the entire script. So if you've got 3, 4 embed points in that script, it'll run through all of them until it gets to the end there then. So you can use those functions, like I say, slightly neater. You don't have to with the include function. You don't need to put any embed points there. So in my daily macro, I would simply say, fine, include the break script. And then also if you've got a short time script, which we can say include, let's say we call this one short, and let's include the balancing macro as well then. Obviously how you choose to put in your description is up to you. Obviously try and make it as descriptive as possible in order for the person to know what's going on there. I now know in this case if I come and see daily macro has been assigned to the shift, I can see here, find the break time, short time, and the balancing script has been assigned. Let's go and look at the break macro and see what's actually going on there for the code. Obviously, if the script doesn't exist, you're going to have an issue then, so you need to also ensure that those names are as you have put it, in the other, as you've configured the other macro script. That description needs to be exactly the same, yeah. And then obviously, if you've got those multiple scripts then that are running and you go to your processing screen, let's just see, it should still be in here, it'll tell you what script it's actually running through. So in this case, it'll tell you that it's running through the break script, and it'll tell you on which line it's actually giving you that information. So if, for argument's sake, you've got a script with multiple lines, and you see, fine, on line 20, you calculate those hours and they're incorrect. You know that something isn't following right there. So just then run through your macro and just see, where things started going south there. So that's then the fundamentals. Like I say, go to your, to the Docs website. Take a look at that. You've got your variables. There's also then some extra functions that you can also use, which is, like you're getting your hours for yesterday, for argument's sake. You've got a get in daily hours. There's a whole lot of functions that you can use then, yeah, and it gives you the parameters of it and explains, a little bit more of what it will do, what this function will actually do. Now in the next session, we'll actually then create a few macros. We'll go through a few basic macros where we'll actually write these macros, and as I'm writing them, we'll explain them and, discuss that so that you actually know what's going on there, and use then a few of these variables and functions as well that you can just see how they work then. But basically what you need to then understand, like I say, just to reiterate, in a script you need an embed point which tells the system where does it need to run this script. You then need a if statement, which is your condition for the script. When does it need to run? If the condition is true, it'll obviously run through the script. If it's false, it'll skip that then. And then you need to end off that statement as well, just so that you can remember that. Just very important, don't forget to end off your statements. And then lastly, then you've obviously got the information that's needed there. You can also then use your call and your include statements to be able to include other scripts then to run in there, which just makes things a little bit neater, especially if you can, if you start from the beginning, you start doing your scripting that way, it makes it a little bit easier for you to keep track of what's going on. It's fine, like I say, if you've got a basic macro, but if it starts getting a little bit hectic at a later stage, you could get slightly confused with what all is going on there. So yeah, that's the basics of the macro. Like I say, in the next session, we will actually start doing, scripting a macro and, explain that as we go along. I hope that you've at least learned something and that you will join me next time. Goodbye.